Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex athletics and a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Geppi.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kingdom Podcast. And I'm your host, Rocco Geppi. It's starting to become hoodie weather. That doesn't bother the coach and the student athletes of my guest today. We would normally be getting into the update portion of the show to start off, and we're still going to do that, except for we're going to get it directly from the coach's mouth, as I am with head cross-country coach Noah Hutton today. Noah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And for cross-country, this is getting into perfect running weather. So when you wear a hoodie, it makes it a whole lot easier to run without a shirt on. So, or with the tank top that is the uniform.
Optimal running weather, eh?
Yes, perfect.
Well, I mean, I guess we could know that because now is the time of year where you start to see all the fun runs and the charity runs and the 5Ks and all that stuff happening in and around the state. For you, this is kind of like the calm before the storm, as your last race, you guys went out to the Eastern Shore, if you will, to Salisbury University to run in the Don Cathcart Invitational. So let's start there. Let's, we wrote about it, but let's get it directly from you. How did the runners do, and how was their progression in that race?
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting year because typically we set to peak at regionals, which is 3 weeks away, which is where we're starting to taper. And it's, like you said, a perfect description is that calm before the storm. But typically we set it up so our fastest 8K is at Hood, which is typically our fastest 8K because it's extremely flat and because it's the race before regionals and it has more competition than regionals. But we see a lot of the same familiar faces. Due to some renovations going on in the park that Hood is usually hosted at. It is actually at a different park this year, and it is much more hilly. And so when we set up the schedule, we didn't really know what to expect. But after going to the first Hood Invitational in the beginning of the year, that was a 5K, and seeing the challenge of the course, we decided to try and taper a little bit extra for the Salisbury meet, since it's also flat and not quite as late in the season. But we thought we could do a little mini taper just to try and get some fast times prior to the challenging Hood course, which will be our last regular season 8K before getting into regionals.
Let's get into talking about these student athletes. I'm here with Noah Hutton, the head cross country coach for both men and women here at CCBC Essex, and we'll be hearing from him next semester, as well as he is also the head coach of the track and field programs. So let's talk about the athletes and how they've progressed and ever since, because you guys started off the season September 3rd at, as you mentioned earlier, at that Blazer Twilight hosted by Hood. So how have they done in going from September 3rd? Now we're here in the middle of October.
So it's been very interesting because I would say each of our athletes on very different trajectories. And it's been very rewarding and interesting to kind of see the ups and downs, make predictions on which athletes we think are going to excel more at a certain race versus a different workout, and what the realities of what actually happened are. Now, Sam Smith and Madison Magaha did compete for track and field for us last year and did a little bit of training for us during the cross season, but there's a big difference between training cross and actually racing cross. So everybody was kind of experiencing that transition for the first time. And for the men, none of our men had ever ran an 8K before. So that was a new experience. And Madison had never ran a 6K before. And many of them hadn't raced in 18 months, give or take, of any kind of cross-country race. So it was definitely a lot of challenges to overcome. And the thing that I will say about this group is this is probably, in terms of attendance, day-to-day work ethic, the hardest working group of individuals we've ever had at CCBC Essex. So depending on how rigorous their program was in high school, it can be a big shock to a lot of athletes. Sure. But all of our athletes this year really, took that head on. And even a couple of our newer athletes, our true freshmen, Isaiah, and then our other true freshman, well, not true freshman, Patrick has been with us for 2 years, but his first year competed cross country with us. Both of them had moments where they kind of flashed in the beginning of the year. But then when we went to the Dickinson Long and Short on a hillier course on a week where we trained high mileage and high intensity, and they weren't supposed to run well, they dropped minutes off their AK time from earlier in the year. So that was really exciting and rewarding to see that. And they didn't have as great races at Salisbury. They both still PR'd, but not by as much as Braden and Sam. And it was a little puzzling to me to figure out why that happened. And the one thing that I think shows their work ethic even more is almost every single individual on the team has now created a Strava account. So I can watch their training mileage without having to ask them. It's just a public thing that I can go and look. And I think one reason why Patrick and Isaiah's 8K time weren't quite as fast at Salisbury as we expected is because they're getting to the point where they're running 7 days a week, multiple weeks in a row. And due to the earlier this season, we had lots of inclement weather days where they just missed days. So they're hitting their highest mileage in the last couple weeks, which makes it hard to race your best times. But I think that means they have the potential to even drop more time at Hood and regionals and run PRs in these meets, when in reality, we thought in the beginning of the season, nobody was going to PR there.
I'm glad that you brought somebody like Patrick up, because Patrick Bennett is somebody I wanted to ask you about directly. As a coach, and you touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to kind of expand. As a coach, you know, you said Patrick's been in the program for a couple of years. This is his first year competing. Watching the progression of Patrick, not just as a runner, but Patrick as a runner, as a student, you know, kind of coming full circle and bringing everything together as a student athlete this year. How does that feel as a coach?
It's extremely rewarding. We have students who come into the program and they may struggle the first semester, or they're not quite sure when they're going to graduate or what degree they're looking at. But Patrick is an individual who came in and he kind of had a general idea what he was doing, but you could tell it was a little bit of an adjustment in the first semester, just to kind of get a feel for the team, what the expectations were for running, what the expectations were school. But he is now excelling academically and is already talking about getting a full-time job in the field right after Essex, before he even gets his 4-year degree, because he's going into computers.
Oh, very good.
Anytime that an athlete graduates from CCBC Essex and already has a mind not only of what they want to continue to pursue academically, but what their specific job is and how confident they are in pursuing that job right after Essex is extremely rewarding. And we're seeing it more and more frequently in the last couple of years, which is awesome.
That's really awesome to hear. Good things coming out of the cross country program. Not a whole lot of time left here, but what I want to know from you, Noah, in the last minute or so we have is Hood Invitational coming up October 16th. Talk about what we can expect from the Knights, and you know, we'll kind of trail out from there.
So hopefully we'll continue to be led by Braden Berkey, who hopefully by the end of the year will move up to number 3 fastest time in AK history. I think he's capable, and hopefully go for a school record next year. Hopefully Sam Smith will follow up his extremely strong and dropping almost 3 minutes at Salisbury in the AK to hopefully break 30 by the time we get to regionals, because his fitness level is getting a lot better. Madison, we're hoping that she continues to build her confidence. Her fitness level has never been the issue. It's just she's dealt with some illnesses over the last 18 months that she's been at Essex, and her confidence level in terms of how fast she thinks she can run has been challenging to overcome. But I think she's finally starting to really believe in herself, and it's showing in her races. And Natalia Johnson, coming from a sprinting background, to come out and run cross country. And at first she was a little nervous, and now she's gotten to the point where Salisbury, she ran a really smart race. She ran almost 2 to 3 minutes faster in her 5K of a 6K race. So we're hoping that she can follow that Salisbury up with another fast race, either at Hood or regionals, and hopefully everybody kind of gains one more experience at the longer stuff, so regionals feels a little bit easier and we can have a strong performance there.
Excellent. Hey, good stuff. No, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to catch up with me and let the folks know in and around the kingdom what's going on with cross country. Of course, you have that race coming up October 16th at Hood. And listen, folks, if you want to learn more about these student athletes in the program, please visit the newly renovated, new design, fresh look CCBC Essex Knights website. It's very simple, ccbcessexknights.com. And Noah mentioned some of the things that he's using to coach the team technology wise. You could see more of that on their Twitter site at CCBC Essex _XC. And keep an eye on the Knights running teams there as well. We're going to hit a quick break. And when we come back in 30 seconds, we're going to update things on the pitch for the Knights men's and women's soccer teams. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed. When it comes to realizing who I am and what I can be, I will not tie my dreams to somebody else's definition of success. I will not confuse a fancy name with a good education.
For all the practical thinkers, the achievers, the can't wait to get started types out there, your community college is waiting. Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at ccbcmd.edu and see what you can be.
Hello and welcome back to the Kingdom Podcast. I'm Rocco Geppi, and at this time, it is my pleasure to be joined by the head women's soccer coach here at CCBC Essex, Steve King. Steve, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Rocco.
It's my pleasure. So at the time we're doing this interview, the interview is going to air after at least one game, possibly two games. We'll see how quickly I can get the edits done. But at the time of the interview, the team sits at 6-2. And the only two losses to two very good teams in Monroe Community College and Monroe College, both Division I opponents. Let's start with the challenges. What has been some of the challenges in this season so far, outside of the losses, so to speak?
Really the depth, which is something that I mentioned at the beginning of the year, and we kind of knew that would be a problem, and not depth as in talent, but just pure numbers. We were able to get through the first couple of weeks without having any injuries. And then right after, I guess it was the second Monroe College game, we picked up a couple injuries that had players out for a couple weeks. So just kind of juggling training sessions and making sure that we're still getting in everything that we need to, but at the same time, making sure that we're going to have enough healthy players to get us through those couple weeks. And we were a little fortunate. It was kind of a catch-22. We lost a couple games from the schedule, and that hurts because you want to get out and play as much as you can. But at the same time, it was kind of a saving grace for us, because it was a nice little break to allow some of the injured players to get back and get healthy. We still had to play against College of Southern Maryland, down a player the entire game, and at times down 2 players, down 9. And to be able to get out of that game, even though it was an overtime game, we had the lead and kind of gave up a late goal. But to get out of there with a win, knowing the adversity that we faced, I was incredibly proud of the team. And overall, I've been very proud of how hard they've worked, how they've taken care of themselves off the field in terms of their physical health, to make sure, that everybody is kind of in their top shape, especially as we get ready for the next couple of weeks. Have a few more games left in the regular season, but then it's time for regionals and districts and hopefully nationals.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out that that game against Monroe Community College, that was an overtime game as well. So really took them to the end there. But let's talk about some of the good. You've started to touch on some of it, and just want to point out a couple of things to get you started. Right now, you guys have already clinched the number 1 seed in the upcoming Region 20 division tournament, which will give you that quarterfinal bye, and put you right into the semifinals, into a tournament that is being hosted by Howard Community College, and will get started on October 27th. And the goal scoring opportunities have been there, outscoring your opponents 30-16 this season. Dietrich, as we've talked about her in past episodes, among the national leaders in goals and points again. So kind of build on that, talk about, some other student athletes as well, and let us know some of the really good things going on for women's soccer here in the Kingdom.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we were able to clinch first place for the upcoming regional, and that was goal number one at the beginning of the year. Go out and take care of the business that we can take care of. And we have no control over what other teams do against other teams, but if we go out and keep winning, then nobody can catch us. And that was certainly a goal, but not the goal to start the year. So again, putting ourselves in a nice spot, but knowing that this isn't where we want to be. We're not content with just being the number one seed. We have to go and win the district and win the regionals and put ourselves in a position to go to nationals and fight for a national championship. One of the things that I've been very happy with is, like you mentioned, Kara is our leading goal scorer and one of the best players in the country, but we're getting contributions from a lot of different players. Referencing that College of Southern Maryland game, Zeta Holloway has a hat trick, right? Kylie Stallbitz has put together a couple goals and a handful of assists. Kenzie Hunt has a few goals. So it's not like it's just Kara. Now, Kara steps up a lot in big games and does happen to be the lone scorer a lot. But she's getting a lot of help. And again, I think coming into the season, not really knowing where a lot of the other goals were going to come from, to have 3, 4, 5, 6 different players who can step up and have multiple goals on the year. That's big for us. It takes pressure. Not only takes pressure off of Kara, but it forces the other teams to not just zone in on Kara, and it allows some space to get opened up and some other opportunities to get opened up. So very happy with where we are overall. I think that this is the time of the season where you want to start building momentum and gaining momentum, kind of get the ball rolling. So with our 3 games left against I think it's Montgomery and Anne Arundel and Hagerstown, certainly want to go out and just continue to do things the right way. Go out and get wins, start strong, play well, and build on the momentum that we've already garnered over the last few weeks as we get ready for the tournaments.
Tell me the name or names of a few that are kind of those sneaky, don't get a lot of play in the box score, but are either very important to what you are trying to accomplish out there. One of the names that comes to mind for me is Aya Neal, but then also some of those student athletes out there that we don't generally think about or see in the box score that are contributing mightily to what you guys are doing.
Right, definitely. Piggybacking off of you, Aya and Abby Meadows, our 2 starting center backs, have really stepped up and done incredibly well for us this season. They have both been incredibly important and have limited each game the number of opportunities that the other team gets. Both of them, in my opinion, are Division I caliber and could go on to play at 4-year universities. They both just step up in training. They're there every day. They bring the intensity, and then in the game, exactly what you're going to get. I is more the vocal leader out there, but Abby does so much of the dirty work and gets stuck in, flying around, sliding tackles. So those 2 in the center are a huge reason that we're in the position that we're in. Danny Lasan and Kaylin LaPointe have been playing outside back for us. Danny's coming off a concussion, but again, 2 just very solid players, right? Stability, consistency. I know exactly what I'm getting from them when they're out there. And I think, again, just incorporating Abby and Aya with those, our back 4 is incredibly strong. And we're going to have a chance to win every game. We're going to be in every game because we have that stability back there. Centrally, Sam Dorr, Sam Hosier have both stepped up very well for us. Sam Dorr playing a little bit more offensive minded for us. So, creating, jump starting, some attacks, not necessarily getting, to your point, into the box score because it might be the third or fourth pass from her when we get the goal. But it's doing a very good job seeing the passing lanes and just creating opportunities for the more attacking players. And then Hosier sitting in that defensive midfield role, just another bulldog type player, gets stuck in, wins everything in the air, very good distribution wise. So battling a little bit of an ankle injury at the moment, so she'll probably be out for the next couple of games. But again, it's not just Kara, the All-American. She's the reason that we are where we are. We're getting contributions from everywhere on the field.
Excellent. Good stuff, Coach. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Hagerstown Community College on the 14th. And of course, the Knights getting that bye will begin their region tournament play on October 27th at Howard Community College. The opponent and game time to be determined. Coach, before I let you go, anything else that you want to add that we didn't really get a chance to get into today?
No, I think we covered a pretty good spectrum. Just again, excited, very happy with where we're at, but not content with where we're at. Still know that we have a job to do, and the opportunity is there for us. So just got to go out and continue to do what we've done so far.
I don't think I've ever met a coach that is ever happy at any juncture this season. I think Nick Saban still wasn't happy with 3 seconds remaining in the national championship last year.
And that's why he's where he is.
Always a pleasure, Coach. Greatly appreciate your time. Head women's soccer coach Steve King, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you follow them on social media. They're on Twitter and Instagram, both spots. They are at Knights_W Soccer. We're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed. When it comes to realizing who I am and what I can be, I will not tie my dreams to somebody else's definition of success. I will not confuse a fancy name with a good education.
For all the practical thinkers, the achievers, the can't wait to get started types out there, your community college is waiting. Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at ccbcmd.edu and see what you can be.
We are back. Thank you for sticking with the show. That was my interview with women's soccer head coach Steve King. And since that interview with Coach King, Knights women's soccer has gone 1-1, defeating Anne Arundel 6-1 on the road on October 7th. And dropping a heartbreaker to Montgomery at home 3-2 on October 12th. A quick recap of those games, starting with Anne Arundel. The big story of this game was sophomore Kara Dietrich. She became the first Knights women's soccer student athlete to collect 100 career goals, and she did so by scoring number 99 in the 13th minute of play and wasted no time getting to that century mark as her 100th goal was scored just a minute 55 seconds later, thanks to a beautiful crossing pass from Zeta Holloway. The rest of that game, the Knights up at that point 2-0. In the 17th minute of play, Anne Arundel's Tori Minina scored to make it 2-1. That would be as close as the Riverhawks would get. The score would go into halftime at that 2-1 mark. But in the second half, the Knights in the 48th minute, Zeta Holloway, she continued to have herself a game. If Kara Dietrich was 1A in that game because of her 100th career goal, well, Zeta Holloway was certainly 1B. Zeta, the first of her 3 second-half goals in the 48th minute. That one went unassisted. Her second goal of the game coming at 55-15 on a pass from Kylie Staubitz. And she picked up her third goal, the Hatter, in the 66th minute on a pass from Mackenzie Hunt to make it 5-1. The Knights would wait until the 82nd minute before Kara Dietrich would get on the board again from, guess who, Zeta Holloway. So the two of them both register hat tricks in the 6-1 victory against the Riverhawks. Holloway finishing with 3 goals and 2 assists. Kara Dietrich finishing with 3 goals on the day to bring the Knights their 7th win of the season. In their next matchup, the Knights, they returned back to the Kingdom, and it had been a minute since the Knights were here at home. Their last game at home was on September 18th when they hosted Monroe College. So it was good to see the Knights back on the field to take on the Raptors, and things started well for the Knights. In fact, just 1 minute 27 seconds into the game, Kara Dietrich scores on a pass from Kylie Stallbutz. Dietrich, her 24th goal of the season, gave the Knights the early 1-0 lead. It would stay that way until the 30th minute of play when the Raptors' Femke Homkoff tied the game on an unassisted goal, and that's how we would go into halftime, tied 1-1. The score remained tied until the 62nd minute of play when Raptors' Luisa Navas-Gonzalez scored her 11th goal of the season unassisted. Kara Dietrich came back with her second goal of the game to tie things at 2 in the 66th minute of play, again on an assist from Zeta Holloway, who continues to feed the ball into the strikers. And the Knights tied it 2-2, like I said, in the 66th minute. Fast forward to the 74th minute of play, and Navas Gonzalez, she would score her second goal of the match to put the Raptors on top 3-2. It would prove to be the game-winning goal, as the Raptors would win this one by a score of 3-2. The good news for the Knights is that they have already clinched the number 1 seed in this season's Region 20 Division II tournament, and they'll move directly to the semifinals on October 27th. Their opponent is to be determined, and the tournament this season is being hosted by Howard Community College, so stay tuned at ccbcessexknights.com for the matchup and game time for the Knights. Staying on the pitch, but moving now to the men's soccer team. As they continue to dominate region play, they remain the number 3 ranked team in the country in Division II. And after dispatching Prince George's 11-0 on September 30th, the Knights took a brief break from their Region 20 schedule and welcomed Lewisburg to the Kingdom. Lewisburg came in, the Hurricanes, as the number 20 team in Division II, and this one had what you might expect from 2 nationally ranked teams. The Knights took control in the 12th minute as Toga Katsuma put the Knights on the board. They took the early 1-0 lead right before halftime, or I shouldn't say right before halftime, but in the 27th minute, the Hurricane tied the score as Simon Afrifa took a pass from Yusuke Kabayashi and tied things up before the break. It remained tied going into the second half. The Knights doing what they normally do and do well, putting a lot of shots on the opposing team in the first half. The Knights outshot Lewisburg 13-6 in the first half. Lewisburg keeper Pride Simpson was able to make 5 saves on the 6 shots on goal. And the Knights also taking 3 corner kicks, so had some opportunities outside of that opening score. In the second half, it would be a lot of technical play and both teams going at one another. The Knights outshot Lewisburg in the second half 9-4. It would take all the way to the 76th minute before we would get a deciding goal. And luckily for the Kingdom, it was off the foot of Andy Portillo as he struck the game winner in the 76th minute on a pass from Kazuma Ishizuka. The Knights, with that win, moved on to their 10th win of the season, and a big win over a ranked opponent to get them ready and for the stretch run in the region, which after that game on October 3rd, they got right back into region play, this time outside of the division against Anne Arundel Community College. And the Knights defeated the Riverhawks relatively easy by a final score of 5-1. The scoring summary in this one as follows. In the 32nd minute, Marvin Martinez, on a pass from Michael Adekambe, put the Knights on the board early. They would never relinquish the lead, as it took them 32 minutes to score the first goal. That second goal, though, came just 12 minutes later in the 44th minute and right before halftime, as Taki Murakawa scored to make it 2-0. The Knights got the second half scoring started in the 55th minute as Sam Diaz took a pass from Andy Portillo. Riverhawks get on the board in the 68th minute on an unassisted goal by Mo Sari. But by that time, too much from the Knights to come back. They trailed by 2, and just moments later, less than 3 minutes later, in fact, Toga Katsuma, he scored unassisted to make it 4-1 before the Knights would cap the scoring in the 72nd minute. Michael Atakambi from Toga Katsuma to make it a final score of 5-1. In this one, again, the Knights going full blast, outshooting the Riverhawks 30-6 in this game, finishing with 14 total corner kicks. And Knights goalie Brendan Lemaster, he set aside 3 out of the 4 shots on goal that he saw, while on the other side, Zane Saab, he saw 17 shots on goal and made 12 saves. On October 12th, the Knights returned home, and they used a 3-goal first half to take down Montgomery College 3-1. With the win, the Knights clinched the Maryland JUCO Conference Championship for the 6th time under head coach Joe Fiedler, who's been at the helm now for the Knights, having won 6 of the last 7 conference championships. So congratulations to Joe Fiedler and the Knights for taking down the conference championship this season. As far as that game against the Raptors, here's the scoring summary for you. In the 9th minute of play, again, the Knights jumping out quick. Kazuma Ishizuka picking up his 7th goal of the season on an assist from Ethan Stewart. At the 10-minute mark, Taki Murakawa scores on a penalty kick. That made it 2-0. And then in the 30th minute, Murakawa picks up his 2nd goal of the game on an assist from Dennis Banagas Torres to make it 3-0. We would go into halftime with that score, and the Knights would not get another goal in the game. However, they only allowed the Raptors to jump on the board one time, which was in the 75th minute. Abdul Ananko scored his 3rd goal of the season to make it a 2-goal deficit, but the Knights' defense continued to play strong, allowing only a total of 5 shots, and 4 of them on goal. Brendan Lemaster making 3 saves. On the other side, Thomas Donnellan, he saw 10 shots on goal and made 7 saves. The men have also clinched the number 1 seed in the Region 20 Division II tournament and will play in the semifinal round on October 28th. Their opponent also to be determined, and this tournament, like the women, is being hosted by Howard. The Knights men will also close out the regular season this week. They will take on Hagerstown October 12th, and then the home finale will take place against Carroll Community College Saturday the 16th. Those games are scheduled for 7 and 12 p.m. kickoffs, respectively. Well, folks, we are getting closer to welcoming women's basketball back here in the Kingdom, as the regular season is not that far away. We released their season preview last week featuring head coach Mike Cini. If you have not yet seen it, I urge you, head over to our playlists, bring up the Kingdom, go to season 4 and watch it. I'm not sure I've ever seen Coach Cini this excited about a team, but I don't want you to take my word for it. Go check out the episode if you haven't seen it already, and see what Coach Cini has to say about this year's squad, both the student athletes, the coaches, and what's in store. And you will not be disappointed. The Knights, they open their season November 3rd at Harcum College. They'll remain on the road until their home opener November 13th against Monroe College. That is all the time we have for this episode. I want to take some time to thank again Noah Hutton and Steve King for coming on and joining me this week. Really appreciate them taking time out of their very busy schedules. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at CCBC Essex Sports, And then on Facebook and YouTube, just keyword search CCBC Essex Athletics. And folks, hit the website. The redesigned website has finally launched. We're very excited about the new look. Go check it out at ccbcessexknights.com and let us know what you think. You can reach out to us on social media, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear if you like the new look. We're excited for it, and we continue to like what we see, but we want to hear from you and have you tell us what you think. Social media handles for all of our fall and winter teams are in the episode description, so make sure you follow us all on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in this week. It's been fun, a little bit longer of an episode, but we got a lot of teams playing and going on right now, so we appreciate your time, patience, and of course your viewership. Until next time, so long, and make sure you are staying well out there. Bye-bye.